Hello friends, in the last discussion we are discussing about pointers, and they will get the idea that pointers are extended or derived type of variables, and it points to value which address they holds. Means whichever the primitive type of data they are pointing to, they have ability to refer their values in the expressions, right? Just like for example, if a is a variable of primitive type and b you set as a pointer variable which holds the address of a. So now b is referring the value of a, so you can update the value of a by using pointer variable. In last sessions we discussed that b also having individual address, a also having individual address. Their properties are different. Primitive type of variable holds the data, and pointer type of variable is actually defined to refer it and once you assign the address of primitive type of variable, by using that address it will refer to the value of primitive type and able to update in the expressions. That is what the idea behind pointers. Now to extend this to the next level, let's say now these sessions will be utility of pointers. Why? Because instead of discussing what is pointer, now it is clear. Now we are discussing why pointers, right? So the first thing what I'm going to discuss with you, that is, let us understand. Okay, here in this case, let us have a title: demonstrating pointers. Okay, we have Studio Tonio, we have Voidman. Okay, now we already aware about the scope limit, right? Scope limit means if you declare the variable inside main, it will be accessed and processed within that scope limit only, right? So let us understand now. In last session we discussed that pointer variable can refer to the memory address and able to update the value of that variable. Now here in this case, let us understand, you have a variable called as a having value 5. So obviously it have a scope in a main only, and then if you print the value of a, it is obvious that it will print 5, right? And if you update the value of a here only, you'll get the updated values also. This is very simple example. If you run it, you'll get the value of a is 5, and if you run it, then value of updated value of a is 10. But now let us understand that you want to perform this updatation not in the main, in the function definition. So for that reason, let's say you write a function called as void update, let's say, and here you try to update the value of a, right? Now you know one thing, the first question arises, you cannot access the variable a over here. The reason is the variable a having scope inside main only, right? So if you try to update the value of a over here, so you can't do it. And what I said, I want to write this process of updating outside the main, beyond the scope I want to update it. Then what are the possible things you can do? Okay, you can do in this manner. You make it this function as a parameterized one. You give a call to update and pass on this a. Whenever you pass on this a, the value of that a will be passed on. Value of that a variable will be passed on, which is having scope in main. And this call is called as call by value. So the value of a will be passed on. Then the control transfer to the function definitions. Here another variable will get declared by the name of b, and b having scope in this function definitions. So here if you try to update the copy of a, but you are not updating the copy of a, you are updating the copy of different variable called as b, which have the value of a. But if you update over here again, when the after updating when the control will be back to the main, you will find the value of a will still remain the 5 only. You will not get the updated value. Means then what is the use of this particular update function then? Because it is accepting the data but not updating the original value, right? So here in this case, instead of call by value technique won't work. What is the problem definitions? I want to update the value of this local to main variable, that is called as auto variables, but I want to have that process outside the main. And if you try to write this process outside the main, you have a technique called as call by value, where you can pass on the value. But if you pass on the value, its value will be assigned to the different variable, and whatever the updates you will do, that will not reflect to that will not update to the original variable. So instead of using this call by value technique, if you can pass on the address of a. Now whenever you are saying whenever you are passing address of a, it become a call by reference. Call by reference means you are actually passing on the reference, you are passing it on the address of that variable. And then we just in the last sessions we discussed that pointer variable have ability to hold the address and points to value that of that particular variable. So here internally it become a statement like star b equals to address of a. It means b will get declared as a pointer variable and the memory address of a will be assigned to it. So b started pointing to the value of a. And if you perform star b plus equals to 5, if you perform star b equals to 5, now what will happen? If you give a call to the update, the address, the reference of a will be passed on, b started pointing to a, right? And whatever the manipulations or the updates you will do with the b, it will directly update the value of a. So if you run this code, what you will find, the value of a is here 5 and the updated value of a will be 10, right? So here we successfully able to update the value of a beyond its scope. Why I am saying the word called as beyond its scope? Because a having scope in main, and without using this reference, without using this call by reference, you can't able to do it. The reason is, if you use call by value, the value will be passed on to the different variable, different variable will update the value, but that updated value will not reflect the to the original variable. Hence, call by reference technique is used over there. Hope you got a little bit concept of a call by reference over there, right? Okay. Now let us understand it by the another example. Okay. Now we have as you know that the limitation of function, I'm not saying limitations, but let us understand every functions returns a single value. Every functions returns a single value. Up till now, you may have different number of arguments or n number of arguments, but it returns only one value over there. Now, what will happen if there is a need of returning more than one value? So up till now, whenever the function is returning more than one value, we set it as a void. It means it will not return the value. Whatever the values we update, if it is more than one, that all the values will be updated, processed there and there only, and able to process over there. But we make it as a non-value return function, void functions. But in this particular example, we'll be discussing if there is a need of returning more than one value, then what you can do. So we don't have any access solutions to return more than one value up till now. Let us discuss this. Now I want to produce a function called as exchange. I want to exchange the two values of two variables. So I'm having two arguments, or rather parameters of exchange, and here I'm having a two variables int a equals to 5, let's say, comma b equals to 7, and I'll clear the screen and I'll print value of a and value of b, that is a comma b. And then if I give a call to the exchange, because I want to this process of exchanging the value of a and b, I don't want to perform in the main. Let us understand the situation, because the process, if you want to perform outside the main, again the questions arises as just we discussed in the prior problem. A was having the scope in main, and whenever we try to update the value, exchange is also again update, right? Because a was 5, now you have to make it a as 7, and b was 7, so now we have to make it as a 5. So it's an exchange, right? So if that process of updating the or exchanging the value outside the main, then there is a question. So if you give a call to the exchange and if you write exchange a comma b, and then here if you try to print the this one, he will try to print the exchanged values of a and b. Now the question is, How are you going to do it? Because if you define a function called as void exchange and declare another variable called as, let's say, c comma int d, then obviously this c and d will become another pair of variable, and if you exchange the values over here, that value will not be reflect to the original a and b which is having scope in main. So what you can do, again, call by value technique won't work because you cannot return the two values. Point number one. Second, if you update the values of a and b don't have a scope in a function definition. So if you update by the c and d, it won't reflect to the a and b. So instead of using call by value, you can use as a call by reference. And then obviously if you are passing it on the address, you need to declare a pointer variable over here. And then now c is pointing to a and d is pointing to b, because the address of a will be assigned to a is assigned to c and address of b will be assigned to d. Now here in this case, if you can say, you know, the process of exchanging, you declare a temporary variable t where you can assign the value of pointer c. C is pointing to a, so value of a will be assigned to temporary. Then pointer c equals to pointer d, is the value of b will be assigned to a, and then pointer d equals to t. So in this manner, the value of c and d pointers are exchanged. Now c and d don't have its own values, it's a value of a and b. So whenever the call goes to the exchange and the reference of a and b will be passed on, so c and d will exchange their values. Exchange their values means exchange actually the values of a and b, and whenever now you and the control will come back to the main, and then whenever now you print the value of a and b, you will find the exchange values. Means like here the output you will get 5,7, here you will get the output as a 7,5, right? So this is what now we are going for. Y pointer. Y pointer is used. The first thing we discuss about what is pointer, because without pointer, can you able to exchange the values of two variables or two or more variables? You can't. The reason is very simple. If you try to update the copy of a variable beyond the scope of main, you need another pair of variable, and if you declare the another pair, means I'm discussing about the call by value, then another pair of variable or another variable will update its own copy. It is not referring to the copy of original variables, and hence in this way, without using call by reference, you cannot able to update the value of original variable, right? So we understand one point clear about the pointer utility, that pointer can refer to the value of primitive type of variable and updates its copy within scope or beyond scope also. So if you use a call by value, the values will be passed on, but another pair of variable will be another variable will be declared, and that another variable won't reflect to the original variable. That updates will not be reflected to the original variable. So call by reference is the best technique, and whenever you are saying call by reference without pointers, you can't do it. So in this manner, we prove one point, that pointer is a variable which refers to the primitive type of data, and it don't have a value of something of its own, because it is holding the address of any other variable, and it got the ability to refer, to process the values to which it is referring. So it provides the ability, because here in this case, to exchange the values of two variables which is having scope in main, you can't do it. The only alternative remains in this case, if you want to exchange, you have to declare a global variable. Let's say here if you declare a global variable, so if you declare a global variable, obviously global variable you can access in main and access in all the function definitions. But like That is not the process. That is not the problem. Problem is we have a variables in a men. We have a variables having scope in men, and you now want to exchange the values. And for that reason, you have to take a reference of a call by reference techniques. Hope you understand this utility of a pointers. In the first sessions, we discussed that if you have a pointer variable and if you want to update the value, then what you can do, you set a pointer variable and use that pointer variable in the expressions, so that whatever the variable it is pointing, it is updating its value. But in case of these sessions, we're discussing about if you want to access and process the variable beyond the scope of it, if the variable is in the men and you want to process it outside the men, so in that technique, in that time, call by reference technique is more useful, and it will be processing the value of that variable which is not in the scope beyond the scope also. Hope you understand this utility. Thank you.